Hello, we're Das Clarks.
And this is about the work we've made.
Where shall we start?
At the beginning. Let's go right back to the very beginning.
All right, let's go back.
Look up then.
Why?
Can you hear me? Feed the monster mouth with a TV eye, you got a sex flash, skin flash. Feed the monster mouth with a TV eye, you got a little strong to the slave drive. You got a handful of pills, handful of drills in this bomb swarm, bomb blast, handful of pills.
We start off in a band, a punk band. A band that took the simple 3-chord philosophy and used it to maximum capacity. If the audience were just standing there, we would jump in amongst them and get the crowd pogoing. We were called Naughty. I think if there had been no Naughty, there'd be no Mr. and Mrs. Clark. Fast forward a year. I ask Gareth if he wants to play guitar whilst I dance. I've just read Chroma by Derek Jarman. My dad has just died. And I want to mark it in some way. These become the subjects of the show we make, Ex-Chroma. It's just us on stage, nothing to hide behind. It's terrifying. Let's never make a show like that again. That was the backstory. Here's where Mr. and Mrs. Clark get born, in a box. Dressed up and masked, we install ourselves in a box. We are a human jukebox and alcohol is involved. We play at a performance art event and people pay us, and they laugh. Not an emotion that goes with performance art at that time. We play until we're no longer able to. And then we get adopted by Tactile Bosch Arts Collective, and it's not long before we're heading to New York, along with the band. At some point, we decide that Mr. and Mrs. Clark should make a show. We have been building up a catalogue of performing small vignettes at various events and decide on a show with a title that will roll off the tongue. The agony and the tragedy of enjoying life and having fun show.
We were in full creative mood. There were no bad ideas, there were just ideas. We threw away nothing. I started being part of the performances, joining in simple choreography and developing characters and parts.
Welsh Independent Dance provides us the opportunity to make a show with a small Welsh tour involved. We embark not just round Wales, but end up being selected for an international tour.
My cow has got away. My cow has got away.
We also land a gig at Covent Garden Opera House and play the same night as Placido Domingo. An Arts Council officer sees the show with her kids and suggests we apply for funding. We do. Our application is successful. We set about making Adventures in the Sitting Room.
It's a show that comments on TV culture and the world viewed from a settee in the confines of a sitting room. Relationships, health, abortion, the human condition are among the subjects tackled. This is the first show that we will involve other performers and will lead to collaborating with filmmaker Chris Nurse.
Cabaret was a blend of Dada attitudes mixed with Martha Graham, Tom Waits, the Turner Prize, Alien Activity and the Ramones, dished up in a cabaret-style format. We would invite other performers from time to time to guest spot. for some of the shows, and due to the format used, this made Cabaret versatile in where it could be shown and the duration. It played theatres, festivals, pubs, and was part of the opening night of Elysium Gallery in Swansea in 2009. Inspired by the format and the liberation afforded in working this way, the next show would take a sidestep into the world of the sideshow. Commissioned by the first Blush Festival at Wales Millennium Centre, Berserkers took all the elements we were attracted to, characters that don't fit into society's norms, and putting them into the frame of has-been performers who will not give up their trade because they don't know how to do anything else in life. We recruited dancers Rosalind Brooks and Lara Ward, and the actor Harry Boast. Berserkers was the first Clark show to have script, which was narrated by a horse, of course.
Of that transcript. My lord, witness X was assaulted in a popular city centre night spot. Indeed.
This show had songs, all of our shows did, but this had specific songs about the characters.
This clown was guilty of no crime, just tried to create special laughter time. But that juggler played with more than his balls. She lost her mind, she lost it all. And as she squeezed that trigger dry, dreaming of that juggler's last painful cry. Well, that clown, he ran straight into line with a squirting red rose in this fatal pantomime. He was the funniest man in town. He was the funniest man in town.
It inspires more musical explorations. We write and devise Prosthetic Soul, a show we made with students and then later with Volcano Theatre Company.
He's got soul! He's got soul!
At the core of the show was the theme of never feeling satisfied with oneself. We all went to cosmetic surgery consultants. It was harrowing. At this point, I felt like we could do anything, so a musical seemed the obvious way to go. Despite never really going to see musicals, we learned many lessons.
It was yet another dive into the unknown. Working with a production team was alien for us. It felt very important that we all start in the same world together, playing games and all having a say in what it was we were trying to achieve. And then we make the Mr. and Mrs. Clark Medicine Show.
Inspired by the medical theme, we embraced the idea of the travelling sideshow that promised to cure all the ills and place the viewer on the road to eternal happiness. It was anarchic and reliant on audience participation throughout. The characters were on this mission to deliver no matter what, and well, they did.
Medicine show caught up in a storm.
We take this show to the Edinburgh Fringe. It's our first time. We perform every day for a month, not realising that we could have taken a day off.
We're all caught up in a storm.
Whilst developing Medicine Show, we created 9 with Sean Twan, John, Peter Farrago and Susie Dory. The audience selected the order of the scenes that told the story of a wayward protagonist, a femme fatale, a mafia boss and a series of support characters. The reference to film noir was obvious, and the story had a nihilistic plot inspired by the genre.
I began to follow Lilith Darling, and boy, this girl has got plenty of appointments. I watch her go from store to salon and runs a schmoozy restaurants.
It looked spectacular and really took the audience into a live performance film world. 9 played many types of venues, from theatres to disused converted shops. We would have to squeeze the set in at times, always managing, even if it took us right up to opening time of show. flesh like fingertips and the grimace of your face.
And then local events in Newport inspire the show Smash It Up. We see firsthand the type of decisions made by local authorities desperate to meet development plans. Culture and art is secondary, and the pointless destruction of a mural in Newport seems to be a visual symbol of the erosion of creative practices in education and across the board. People got angry when they saw the mural being destroyed. What further stirred us was the loss of public space, which became private. We work with Andre Stitt to explore how we can create a response and identity to start a campaign of street interventions that make up the basis of the performance. Catherine Bennett worked with us to develop a movement vocabulary, and she became an excellent outside eye for the show.
We make Smash It Up in collaboration with Newport artist Bosch. Their style of quick, cut-up film and sound brings the outside actions into the performance arena. We take the show to Edinburgh, despite some negative voices that say it is too local to Newport. Unperturbed, we discover that this privatisation of public space is widespread, and the response to Smash It Up is positive and heartfelt. It gets us nominated for an Amnesty Freedom of Expression Award, for which we are shortlisted, the only independent company among the shortlisted. Yes!
Inspired by creative actions, we developed the idea of inviting the neighbours around to paint. Marega's idea to invite people to create a large collaborative painting is brilliant. It connects people to the location in new ways and underlines the need for creative energy to transform what could be seen as negative space.
This project starts in a disused shop and later spills onto the streets and at festivals. Permission is never asked, just set up and go. It embraces anyone that is passing from all walks of life. For a moment in time, people are connected by the simple act of making a mark, a very primal urge and response to being.
And then I got challenged to make a solo show, and I was terrified, to be honest. So I developed a show called Fear. It was directed by Agnieszka Blonska, and every step of the way was a challenge for me. And yeah, you're going to see me dancing in my pants. It seemed to touch so many people, and it was extremely cathartic to perform.
Ridicule and nagging. And then somebody says to me, "School days are the best of your entire life." And that just fills me with terror. What the fuck is coming next?
I worked closely with Guy on the choreography of the show, and it felt right to put Fear out there under the Clark's banner. It was the first show that didn't include the both of us on stage, and it felt timely. This was another Edinburgh campaign. Our marketing tactics proved to be working. A strong image with matching t-shirts, photo by Steve Tanner and poster design by Stephen George Jones.
We were looking for something to develop specifically for outdoor events and festivals. This had been commissioned by Articulture and the Wales Outdoor Arts Consortium. 2016 had been the year of the EU referendum and the US elections. There was a lot of material to be had watching people campaign and debate. We spent hours watching and then developing the body language of the media-trained candidates. And then Catherine Bennett really helped us shape this show.
Once again, it is through the doing and putting work out there on the street that really informs how something will be read. People got behind the campaign, and on one occasion in Swansea, Mrs. Clark was almost set upon by some teenage girls who saw through the injustice of Mr. Clark never winning.
Mrs. Clark.
It also taught us that street theatre doesn't have to be about being larger than life and spectacular to be noticed. Sometimes the smaller draws people in, making them feel more involved.
Thank you.
And then there's Louder is not always clearer. I'd met Johnny Kotzen years ago whilst travelling in Egypt. He came to work at the riverfront and he liked the work we were making for theatre. This show developed from his desire for us to make something about deafness. He didn't realise at that time we would make him do the show. Again, we worked with Catherine Bennett to enhance the choreography. We worked with Christopher Young to devise a real and live sound score. And we worked with the audiovisual artist Jorge Lizalde.
Making Louder was a real education, an insight into the deaf world. Gareth brought his experience of making work connected to real, lived-in experience and applied the same rules to Louder. The show gets selected for Rural Touring Dance Initiative and for the British Council Showcase in Edinburgh. And this is where we start going international until COVID-19 hit. The rest, as they say, is history still playing out.
Oh yeah, and perhaps we should tell you about the Shelley Duvals. You see, we started in a band, so why not start another one?
Look, at the one on the edge. Got a hammer in his head. Doesn't feel like